Okay, we're going to do another social studies story time. So this is another World War II story, but this one is about the Danish king and how the Jewish people were treated in Denmark during World War II. Now, part of what you're going to read about this week is about the Holocaust, which talks about how Jewish people were treated by the Nazis and how what happened to them in the rest of Europe. But I'm going to talk to you about Denmark, which is a small country, really small country. And they had a little over 7,000 Jewish people who lived in Denmark when the Nazis invaded in 1940. Now, for whatever reason, and we don't really exactly know why, Adolf Hitler really did not like Jewish people and he really did not want them around. And so he made lots of different rules. And you'll read about this week. And one of the rules that he made was that they had to wear what was called the Star of David. And it was basically two triangles that went together and made a six-pointed star. And all of the Jewish people, no matter how old or how young they were, had to wear this symbol on their clothing when they went outside of their homes or their apartments, so that anyone who saw them would know that they were Jewish. Every other country in Europe that the Nazis had invaded went along with this fine. The Danes, the king of Denmark, King Christian X, said, no, we're not going to do it. If the Jewish people in our country have to wear that, then we will all wear it. And he actually wore the star too. And so after a while, the Nazis just were kind of like, well, okay, whatever. We're just going to give it up, because they wanted to be able to identify the Jewish people quickly because they had further plans for them. In 1943, they decided to start liquidating the Jewish people. They had already done this in most of the countries that they had taken over. They just hadn't done it in Denmark yet. But the Danish people got word that this was going to start. And liquidate means basically get rid of. They planned to round up all of the Jewish people. And hello, Sully. Apparently, Sully has decided that he is an essential worker today, and that the tortilla cat has decided to get involved in our video. Say hello. There he is. He's getting his hair looks as bad as mine. He needs a haircut as badly as I do. But you just sit there and you be quiet for a minute. Let me get this finished, okay? Where was I? The Jewish people were being rounded up and being taken away, and most of them were killed. The Danish people got advanced word that this was going to happen to their Jewish people, and they decided that no, this was not going to be allowed to happen in their country. These people were part of their community. They were their friends. They were their neighbors. This was not going to be allowed to happen. And they came up with a plan to try to get all of the Jewish people out of the country. The scout is apparently going to join us as well. No, she's going to go over there. Too many cats today. So their plan was to get all of the Jewish people they could onto fishing boats and take them across this little piece of ocean that was 3 miles from Denmark to Sweden. Sweden was a neutral country, which means they weren't fighting on either side of the war, but they were an ally to the Danish people, and they did not like the Germans. And so even though they weren't fighting against them, they weren't willing to help the Germans. And so they were willing to let all of the Jewish people from Denmark come to Sweden and stay and be safe during the rest of the war. And so over a period of about 3 or 4 days, it was a very short period of time, 7,200 Jewish people were loaded up onto boats and taken across to Sweden, and they were kept safe. About 500 Jewish people either got caught in trying to get away or didn't get the word that they were getting moved, or for whatever reason, those Jewish people were taken and placed into a concentration camp, which you'll read about some this week. But the Danish people were determined that nothing was going to happen to their citizens at these concentration camps. And so every single week during the rest of the war, and the war didn't end until 1945, they would send someone to check on these 500 people. And in the end, only 51 of the people died. By the end of the war, only 51 of them had died, and they had died because they got sick and died, and they weren't killed directly by the Germans. After World War II was over, all of the Jews, Scout's helping with her tail there, all of the Jews came back from Sweden and came back to their homes and discovered that their homes were still perfectly kept. They had been maintained for them and taken care of for them by their neighbors, by their friends. There goes Scout. She's helping out now too. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. And they had even watered their plants for them so that their plants were still alive. Everything, they could just step back into their lives just like they had never been gone. They had picked up their friends had, their neighbors had picked up the mail for them, had taken care of their homes, had made sure that everything was ready for them when they came back. This is the only country in the entire world that did this. They are the only people who stood up to the Nazis, to the Germans, and said, no, you cannot have our people. And they're a tiny, tiny little country. And yet they stood up to this big country that was Germany and this big force that was Adolf Hitler and the Nazis and said, no, you cannot do this. They were the only country in the world, including the United States, who did this. So think about that the next time that you think that you're too small or too weak to make a difference. Think about the Danish people and what they did. All right, next week's story will not be about World War II. I haven't quite got it figured out yet what it's going to be, but I will let you know next week. If you didn't get a chance to go back and see the week 5 video, it dropped. It was Friday when I put it up, and it didn't get a lot of fanfare. There wasn't an announcement that got made, I don't think. If you want to go back and see it, it's kind of interesting. It's Adolf Hitler versus the White Stallions. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. Go back and watch it if you haven't seen it yet. And I will talk to you the next time. Hope that all of you are doing well. I hope that you are still practicing social distancing and washing your hands and wearing your masks out in public. And I will see you next time.